We chop it up with Jake Crain on today's episode of the Uptempo Podcast.
You are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What is up, Auburn family? Welcome back to the Uptempo Podcast. Countdown to Kickoff, episode number 4. I'm your host, Dustin Smith, joined as always by the Mobile legend, Blake Lane. You see him right there, our guy, Jake Crain. Jake, talk to the people. How you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great. Fall camp, it's here. I know they're still running around in panties, no pads yet, but man, the air smells sweeter, the sun's shining brighter. It's football season, baby. Let's go.
Yes, yeah, dude, we're fired up. We cannot wait, man. We cannot wait. Blake, how you doing, brother?
I'm hanging in there, man. Just got off of work, coming in here to talk some Auburn football with Jake Crain over from the Daily Wire. I remember when Jake started with the J-Boy Show. I was one of the OG listeners, loved his content. Jake, I loved everything that you started, man. You were a big influence on me, and I just I loved everything that you did with the Auburn talk, and still today how you still show love to the Auburn Tigers on your show.
Yeah, well, number one, Blake, I appreciate you saying that, man. It was very, fortunate. Coach to the college 9.5 years, and when COVID hit, just when they sent us back while we were waiting, just tried to make something out of nothing, make lemonade out of lemons, and just really fortunate, man. Loving what we're doing, and of course, I'm a show love, man. We talk about everything, but let's be honest. I mean, we're football guys, so that's what we spend most of our time doing, and it's all love for the 3-3-4, man. Always will be.
Love that, Jake. Well, man, let's hop right in here to the football talk and talking about the Auburn Tigers and head coach Hugh Freeze. All of the positivity and the hype around the program right now, coming off a Big Cat weekend, flipping Perry Thompson and DeMarcus Riddick, two big-time gets, Jake. I wanted to ask you, we heard before Hugh Freeze was hired at Auburn, you were on your show calling for that hire and saying that Hugh Freeze was the guy to bring Auburn back to the promised land. Man, why were you so positive about Hugh Freeze, and why did you think he was the right guy for the job?
Well, I caught a lot of flack, especially at the beginning, but that's why, look, it's like we say on the show, if I was trying to make everybody happy, I'd sell ice cream for a living. But it's a couple things, it's never just one thing. One of the biggest things that stands out is I've had a relationship with Coach, and I know the man that he really is. I know how competitive he really is, and he's one of those guys. He's not afraid. Like Auburn, where they were at, right now is probably the hardest time it's ever been to be an Auburn fan.
Yep.
Growing up, I used to hear them talk about, even my father talk about the Bear Bryant days and things like that when. Alabama was doing what they were doing. Not only do you have that, now Georgia, you look to your left, and now Georgia is on a dominant run. Auburn's two biggest rivals. I think that's disputed by anybody. So you needed a guy that would come in and be a fighter. And Coach Dye and Coach Freeze are different. Coach Freeze hasn't coached a game yet. They're different guys. But you wanted a fighter in here that wasn't afraid, that wasn't that was willing. It's not that you're scared to go out there and play them. It's that are you willing to put in the work, to bleed and sweat and do all the things that it takes, because that's what they're doing in Athens and in Tuscaloosa. They outwork you. They have a better system and they outwork you. So you needed a guy to come in that wasn't afraid to try and build that monster a little bit. And he's done it before. I mean, if you look at Hugh Freeze, the man's won everywhere he's went. His downfall was self-inflicted. I mean, guy he's beaten Bama, beat him with Bo Wallace. He's beaten Kirby. I think he's 1-0 against Kirby. Now that was a different, kind of scenario than what Georgia is right now. But then you have a place like Auburn that you can win, that they eat, sleep, breathe, live and die by. It's a representative. I said this on the show this morning. Auburn football is a representation of the people that are not only from Auburn but are Auburn fans, and that's how you feel. That's why you get that emotion when you watch that team, is because they're a representative of you. You mix that with a guy who had been to the highest levels and had success, and saw his professional career flash before his eyes. He was already hungry, but now he's starving. I talked about Brian Harston. I'll always give guys benefit of the doubt. I know how hard it is at that level to be able to go in and try and do it. But at the end of the day, Brian Harston was a house cat. He wanted his milk brought to him. I thought Blaine, one of the co-hosts on the show said it best. Hugh Freeze out here with a bow and arrow in the jungle, knowing he has to kill to be able to eat. And that's what he's out there doing right now. He's hunting, nose to the ground, ear to the ground, listening for hoofbeats. He is out here hunting, and he's killing his own dinner. Now, there's a long way to go, but when you mix the climate that Auburn has, the facilities, the NIL, the want to, and when Auburn aligns, when everybody gets together, you can build the Mega Ranger at Auburn. Now, you add that with a coach that's hungry, that's not afraid, and knows how to do it. Well, you're starting to see that a little bit. Go watch what happens. They go out and go 8-4. Go 8-4 and watch what happens, or maybe even better. You never know, especially in year one coaches at Auburn. But you got a guy that wants to hunt, that's willing to hunt, and he knows where the prey's at. And at the end of the day, he's not afraid. And I think it's a great fit. I thought it'd be a great fit then. I think it's a great fit now, and I stand by what I said.
Love that.
100%. Jake, when you talk about these guys hunting, Hugh might be leading the pack, but he's hunting with a pack. He's got guys behind him like Zach Etheridge, like Josh Aldridge, these guys that are really hitting the trail, man. We know what Cadillac does. He identifies a running back. He goes and gets his guy. Just speak to the work this staff is doing, the staff that Hugh put together, the work that they're doing behind the scenes, getting these guys on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you watch lions or animals having to take down a bigger animal, they hunt in packs. It's not one-on-one. They get you from every angle. They wear you out, and then they take you out. You can't say enough about what the staff has done. You can tell the staff likes each other. I've been on staffs that have liked each other. I've been on staffs that haven't liked each other. And it's one thing to like each other, but it's another thing to have guys that can go out there and get the job done. The guys that can go out there and you feel confident in that coach walking in the living room and you being the closer. I'll walk in there when I need to walk in there. I'll Don Corleone pet the cat in front of everybody when I need to pet the cat in front of everybody. And that's what he's got. I mean, Zach, you can go through the whole list. Aldridge, what Trevon Reed's doing, what Caddy's doing. It's a group effort, and you've got a lot of guys that understand Auburn too. And I think that's one of the best decisions that Hugh Freeze made is bringing in guys not just that played at Auburn, but you have to be able to have guys when you're a new head coach going into an environment that you know about, but you don't really know about. You have to have guys that can go in there and say, Coach, listen, it'd be smarter if we did it like this, or this would fit better with where we're at. And I think he has a great blend of older coaches. You look at the coordinators, younger coaches, and that again, you don't want a staff full of just old guys. You don't want a staff full of just young guys. But it seems they're really gelling well. Now, listen, the bullets haven't started flying yet, right? They're going to start flying here pretty soon. But again, I think going through it and building up to that point, I mean, this staff is gelled about as good as you possibly can.
Jake, I just want to ask you this. We almost saw Lane Kiffin take this job. And right at the last second, he backed out, stayed at Ole Miss, and we get Hugh Freeze. Do you think Lane Kiffin would have been able to recruit like this quickly at Auburn?
No, I don't think Lane would have been able to do everything that Hugh's done. I think you'd have gotten a huge NIL push, which is a big deal, having Lane Kiffin. I mean, you look at all the PR, you look at all the pub. Lane's kind of that new wave of young coach that embraces social media, right? That understands how you look at Shane Beamer, you look at some of these other guys, that Marcus Freeman, that use it as. Now, Hugh, I think, has done a really good job, and I know he's kind of dances around social media a little bit with everything that's happened. He's got to be smart. He's got to pick and choose his battles. I think Lane would be doing well because I think Auburn sells Auburn, and Lane Kiffin we know is a guy that's very attractive. But Lane, as a recruiter, isn't as invested as what Hugh Freeze is in my and anybody that's coached for him will tell you that. It's a little bit of that NFL background, I think, in him, where the players are drafted or they're signed as free agents. You're really not kind of recruit guys a little bit, but it's a totally different animal. I think Lane would be having success, but I mean, guys, we're seeing stuff we've never seen before. I mean, flipping not only players from Alabama and Georgia, but guys they really wanted. This wasn't some kid that was falling down the board that they kind of said, oh well, we'll put you in the basket and send you down the river. We'll take this quote unquote L. Perry Thompson's one of the highest ranked recruits Alabama has from Foley. Auburn just doesn't walk down to Mobile and grab guys like that are going to Bama. it doesn't work like that. And then taking a kid from Georgia, especially on defense, when you're looking up and all you see in the NFL is guys from Georgia, especially on the defensive side. So, I think, again, we are seeing what happens when want to meets capability. And I think that's what you're getting with Hugh Freeze.
I love that. Jake, in our lifetime, man, we've seen Auburn pop 2010, 2004, 2013, sniffed it a little bit in 2017. What we haven't done, man, is be consistent. Why is Hugh Freeze the guy to get us to a consistent level where even in the down years when guys get hurt and maybe we lose a couple games we shouldn't have lost, where the basement is 8-4, 9-3, not the average like it has been under previous regimes?
Well, I think it's because he's able to evolve as the game evolves. I mean, what cost Gus Malzahn?
Right.
I mean, you wrote a book on the hurry up, no huddle. I'm on the Up Tempo podcast. We might as well hit it. You got slower every year in the SEC.
Yeah,
you built up your name and your system off running the ball and doing get back up to the line. There's some misdirection. People call it gadget plays or gimmicks. That's because they don't understand what football is. It's a game of eyes. You lose your eyes, you lose the guys. But you couldn't sign and develop high school offensive linemen. But I think when you look at the greatest offensive minds right now that we have in the game, not just in college but in the NFL, the game always changes, right? We see this in every sport. Guys, defenses catch up. They adjust. They close the gap. The rules change. The style of player in high school changes a little bit. The one thing that doesn't change is your ass better be good up front or they're going to be changing head coaches. But being able to evolve, but still having an identity, still that three-man surface method, the RPO style, but being able to – life is a game of adjustments. Football is your adjustment to the adjustment. We see it in baseball all the time. Oh, well, guys got 3 pitches. You better be able to adjust. Well, by the time he's 2-3 years in the league, the book's out on you, right?
Yeah.
You've got to be able to adjust. Pitchers in Major League Baseball, they come in that first 3 or 4 starts, and you're like, oh, my God, we have the greatest pitcher of all time. Well, then all of a sudden, they catch up to what he's doing. He gets knocked around for the next 15 games, so you have to adjust to the adjustment. So I think evolution is the one thing, because there's a saying I've had since the J-Boy show, Blake, and you've heard me say this. If you're not evolving, you're dissolving.
Yep. Yeah, and good stuff right there, Jake. And we're excited about Coach Hugh Freeze. One thing I wanted to ask you is Hugh went and got a quarterback in Peyton Thorne, right? And Robbie, we know what he went through last year and with the shoulder and being beat up and everything. Do you think the guy who starts in week 1 finishes the year as the starting quarterback? And who do you think will be the starting quarterback?
Well, when you think about that question, obviously you got to think about injury.
Yeah, right? Take injury out of it. Just say that everybody's healthy.
Take injury out of it. Yes, and here's why. You brought in Peyton Thorne, obviously, to add some depth to that room, to add some experience. I mean, just look at the way the stats in that room jumped up when Peyton Thorne got added, right? Coach's son has played at a very high level, playing in the Big Ten, which has been, in my opinion, the second best conference, even though I think the Pac-12, believe it or not, as fast as that ship's sinking, maybe the second best conference in the country this year. And typically you don't sign transfer portal guys or JUCO guys to sit. That's not really what you do. But in this system, and I've said this, it's the opposite ends of the coin for Peyton Thorne and Robbie Ashford, right? And it all goes back to the system, right? You're only as good. The food's only going to be as good as the ingredients you're cooking with. So you don't want to put a square peg in a round hole. We're not talking about lining up under center and getting in the eye, getting in 12 personnel and sitting here and running gap and counter and power and all that ISO. Now, we're not talking about that. We're talking about an RPO-based system where you get your 10, you get your 11, you'll get some 12 in exotic formations. It just depends on kind of what you have. But on one side of the coin, can Peyton Thorne run well enough to be able to have defenses respect that in the RPO game, right? All the RPO is the triple option with the pass built into it from the shotgun. That's all it is, right? You can do more things on the outside, triple option or wing tee, whatever you want to call it. You do more things on the inside. The other end of the coin, can Robbie Ashford throw it well enough to be able to have defenses respect that? Because, again, balance keeps you on the beam, right? You never want to be one-dimensional. If Robbie Ashford can throw the ball like he did against Alabama, to me, he's the best quarterback on Auburn's roster because he is the best, one of the top 5 running quarterbacks in the country, right? As a defensive guy, and look, I know we're going to get to Auburn and where we're from and stuff like this. I'm an Auburn fan. We're all fans of somebody. But I take bias out of it. I've seen how the sausage is made, and Auburn hasn't sent me a check yet. But I guarantee you I would much rather line up against Peyton Thorne at full efficiency than Robbie Ashford at full efficiency. Because I will try to go to sleep at night, the night before the game, hoping to God that he does not take off and go for 75 and score. Because he can, right? I can drop 8. I can do things to keep you in front of me. I can run cover 3, right? I can play it safe, bend but don't break, whatever you want to call it. Robbie Ashford breaks that second level, he's Gonzo the Clown. There isn't a whole lot of defenses built to be able to stop a guy that can run like that. So that's a big question with Robbie. We've seen him have touch, right? I do think he can make all the throws, but he has to show it efficiently. I do think Peyton's going to win the job. I think he runs well enough to make you to have to respect it, to be able to manipulate what you need to manipulate. But Robbie Ashford, I think, as long as he doesn't lose his mind and get pissed off or something like that, whatever, and pitch a fit, I think you're going to see him on 3rd and 4th and shorts a lot. I think he's probably going to be out there for 15 to maybe 25 snaps a game. Wow. You're going to see him in the red zone. You're going to see him in gadget plays. That's a weapon you need to be able to use. And Hugh Freeze and Phil Montgomery and all these guys are versatile enough. And Robbie throws it well enough. Where's that wildcat? That's not what it is. It's like on punt when you had some guys, believe it or not, that would have backup quarterbacks that may be more runners than throwers as the personal protector on punt. That scared me to death as a special teams guy. Because you snap it to him, he could run it or throw it. I've got to defend everything. So putting defenses in pressure situations with guys that do different things well but can do all things, I think Robbie's going to be a big part of this offense if he doesn't win the job.
No matter who the quarterback is, Jake, it's going to be about running the football to help them out, right? Yep. Something we just haven't been able to do in the past. Me and Blake talk about it, and everyone knows, man, especially on 1st and 2nd down. That's, to me, that's where the whole problem has been on offense is a yard on 1st down, then you get your penalty, and now you're in 2nd and 14 or whatever the case may be. You're just behind the chains from the get-go. We have a lot of faith in Jarquez Hunter. We feel like we've improved the offensive line, right? This guy's still got to gel together. But we know Jarquez is going to lead the team in rushing. The interesting question that me and Blake have kind of formed over the summer is, who's second? Is it Damari? If Robbie Ashford gets 15 to 25 snaps a game, like you just said, I would say it's Robbie Ashford that would be second in rushing then. A guy like Brian Battie obviously had a big year last year. He's coming in the mix. Who do you think is second behind Jarquez in rushing yards this year?
I think it'll be close probably between Robbie and Damari. To say, I don't think there's going to be some huge gap in between the second leading rusher. I think Battie is going to be more your speed sweep, now screen, bubble screen, return game guy. Similar to not as much volume as Ontario McCaleb, but used in a similar role. Because what he does on the perimeter in the run game just stretches you so thin, and then he is flexible hips to be able to cut it back. That was Sean Shivers' kind of biggest problem, right? Sean Shivers' straight line speed. I mean, he's out there running against Jamaica and having a chance in the Olympics. But you make him cut back, then you're in trouble, right? It's like away from Mighty Ducks that could skate really fast, but he couldn't stop. Like it doesn't matter if you can't turn. I think Jarquez, and I know that's what your question. I think Jarquez is a more versatile back than what Tank is, and Tank's a great player. Tank's an NFL running back, but Jarquez to me, I think can hit the home run, right? Yeah. Tank. His long runs were 35, 45 yards, had alien vision. I mean, he's seeing in 3D. It's like Interstellar every time he got the ball. He's just seeing colors and cubes and stuff like this. He's cutting back and things like that, which you never do. But when he felt like a guy was overplaying and he was right 90% of the time, you let him eat. But Jarquez does everything. He's powerful. He can cut. He can hit the home run. He can catch the ball. He's physical. He can his pass protection's gotten a lot better. But I would say I would probably give the slight edge to Damari because I think he's going to get more volume. You talk about up front. I don't know if there's been a bigger upgrade anywhere on Auburn's roster than the offensive line. Now, I don't know if that's saying that much because they were basically paper mache last year, mostly. And while they had Harsin, and those guys fought. I'm not trying to knock those guys. I don't think they were soft. I just don't think they were good. That's a real thing. But you look at the guys he's brought in. I mean, that is where you want to bridge the gap right? You want to get there. How do these other teams rise up? They didn't do it with just wide receivers. They didn't do it with just corners. They did it with offensive linemen and defensive linemen that could line up, and you know they're running it. I know they're running it. God knows they're running it, and it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, this game, I don't care what system you run. If it's air raid, if it's triple option, if it's something we haven't even thought of yet, if you're not good enough up front, it's not going to work at a high level. Bringing in Avery Jones, bringing in the guys from Tulsa, bringing in the kid from Western Kentucky. You just got a big commitment from the Northwestern kid who I think is going to end up being a really good player.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you go back and watch his tape. Dylan Senza does some really good things, but they're still building that depth, right? And now, I mean, you look at some of the offensive linemen Auburn's in on. Drake Carter, are you kidding me? Like,
how you feel on that one?
That's what they look like. You want to know what they look like? The Georgias and the Alabamas and the LSUs and the Michigans and the Ohio States. That's what they look like. So it's a good mixture of being a new guy that uses the transfer portal to plug the leaks in the ship. You don't want to build the ship out of the transfer portal while you're getting that high school talent that you can develop, because it's about depth. Common misconceptions a lot of fans fall for is, oh, it's our starting five. Look how good our starting five is. Well, that's great, all right? It's about your first 7, your first 8, because football is a battle of attrition. Same thing on the defensive line. It's not about your starting 4. If you're 3 down, you're starting 3. It's about, do you have 5, 6, 7 guys roll out there that can be effective, that can rush the passer, that can spill pullers, box pullers, that are physical, be able to take on and beat double teams, or at least stalemate double teams inside, so those linebackers can see those windows and go eat, and they have space, and they don't feel like they're caught in a Rubik's Cube. So I think that's probably been the biggest place he's upgraded. Auburn isn't there yet, but they're a whole hell of a lot in a better spot than they were last couple of years. That's really, I mean, last 4 or 5 years, in my opinion.
You mentioned Carter, Jake. How are you feeling on that one? You think we bring him home?
Look, right, I'm not doubting this staff.
Yeah.
I'm not doubting them. It seems like it doesn't matter where they're from. They're legitimately in on them. I think that comes down to being genuine, right? Because in recruiting, NIL, money talks. Okay, let's not play. Okay, money talks. In every profession, in every walk of life. But where you're at, Auburn's in a great place in the Southeastern Conference. It sells itself. Auburn sells itself. But this staff has an uncanny ability, I think, to really connect with people. Because when you're going into a living room and you're asking whether it's the mom and the daddy, or just the mom, or just the daddy, or the grandma, or the auntie, or the uncle, or the brother, whoever it is, that's their most prized possession. Like that is a huge deal, and to be able to talk somebody in, especially going from one end of the country to the other,
twice,
for 4 years, 3-4 years, they got to really take care of them, that you care about them more than just how good they can down block, or how good they can skip pull, or how flexible they are on their ankles, or how good they can pass set. So I'm not doubting the staff, man. I think because they're genuine people. That's the difference. That's what people don't understand about Kirby and Saban and them. Like, they think they're these rah, 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 crazy people just running around screaming at everybody, including the maid. Well, yeah, they'll get after you when they need to get after you, but there's a genuineness to them that they can make you feel like you really care about the person. So I think this staff has that. So yeah, I'm not going to count them out. I mean, TJ Lindsey, another guy I think they're about to get. Yeah. It just if you're an Auburn fan right now, I mean, you got to feel like a Disney princess. I mean, just animated birds are landing on your shoulder. It's like a real Sound of Music situation. You're just dancing in the Alps right now, singing the Creed. I don't know.
Jake, I wanted to ask you, man, this Auburn defense last year, they couldn't get off the field on third downs. They couldn't create turnovers. It was the yards per rush last year was atrocious. They just couldn't do anything right, honestly. Do you think Ron Roberts can change that in year one? And what kind of defense is he going to play?
Well, look, Ron Roberts is a guy that's been around the block. He knows how to put his personnel, not only ones they've inherited, but the guys they've brought in. He knows how to put them in the right position. Do I think this is going to be a dominant Auburn defense like we've seen before in the past? No. But I love what they have in the back end. I think there's some talent at linebacker. The depth at linebacker worries me. That it's going to come down to, can they rush the passer or not? That's what it's going to come. You want to get your ass off the field on third down, be able to get after the quarterback. You get guys into 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. That's how you create turnovers. As the DB coach, my best friend was the D-line coach in the D-line. There's a whole – D-line can make DBs look really good. for DBs to make D linemen look good. It typically doesn't work like that. So he's going to put them in the best position. They don't have to be the steel curtain because I think this offense is going to be effective. They just have to be a good defense. When you are moving the ball, holding people to field goals, you just can't go out there and get ran through like a finish line consistently because that affects the offense. They're all human beings and vice versa. So I think if the defense can just be good enough that the Falk kid, I'm ready to see him. I'm ready to let them see him, get out there and go eat. Because that's, again, you want to know what they look like. But yeah, I think there may be some growing pains. There's going to have to be some games where they outscore some people. But I think Ron Roberts is going to put them in position to make enough plays to be effective.
Jake, you mentioned Keldrick Falk, and by the way, we want your little brother to jump in the boat too. We want little Falk to come on board, and it seems like he's pretty close to making that.
Next one, and the next one, and the next one.
However many, dude, just like the Hood boys. Because I hear that Colton Hood has been tearing it up in the summer workouts. Very athletic kid. But you mentioned Keldrick, man, and this has been everybody who is paying attention. Biggest concern is pass rush, right? It seems like we've just kind of tried to piece this together in the offseason. Let's all three give our predictions on who we think is going to lead the team in sacks. Blake already knows who I'm going to say is Keldrick Falk. I think that Jake, I've said I think he has a slow start to the season just because he's a freshman in the SEC. I think maybe that A&M game is kind of a rough go for him, just that first one. Maybe Georgia, LSU, he kind of struggles. But I really think that by the end of the season, I think he's that dude, man. I think he's a guy that's going to play in the NFL. And I think 5 or 6 games in, he really kind of starts to take over and become that main guy on the defensive line. So my prediction is I think Keldrick has 7-8 sacks and has a solid freshman season. Blake, say you, and then Jake, give us your answer.
Yeah, I went with Jalen McLeod a couple of episodes ago.
That's right.
Yeah, so I think he's going to do well this year.
Man, here's where having a good offensive line helps guys grow up quicker, right? It's iron sharpens iron. You look around the country and say, man, how do these young guys at these big-time places, how are they able to just come in and play? Well, guess what? The hardest guy they go against is every day in practice, right? You put them in those situations, they're not shocked when you go out there and there's so monster from Texas A&M that they got off 7-foot island that's out there. It doesn't shock them because that's the outside of quarterback. That's the hardest transition. It's the line of scrimmage because typically kids you can lift all these weights and do things and be strong, but you don't have that old man strength yet, right? You don't have that year 3 in the SEC strength yet or know the tricks of the trade. It's not just about going in there and headbutting and bull rushing your way through things like you're able to do in high school. I'll say this. I'll give you a name y'all haven't said. I like Marcus Harris.
Oh, yeah.
And I like his versatility. I think him as a pass rusher on the interior can cause a lot of problems. And look, if the guy's on the edge, the McLeod kid coming in was huge. Huge. Experience, plays with his hands. He's got enough, more moves than somebody on Mortal Kombat. Falk, I think, is going to get into it as you alluded to, Dustin, kind of as the year goes on. Not that he'll be nervous, but you are kind of feeling. It's like going on a first date, right? Do I lean in and do I give her the kiss, right? Do I put my arm around her at the movies? You're feeling your way out. You're not just going in there and just trying to plant one on her the minute you go to the door. She answers the door. But he's so talented. Once he gets that in-game confidence, because there's a lot of different. So practice again. Like you make practice more important than the game. The game's a whole heck of a lot easier. That in-game experience, that in-game confidence, that's a different animal. But Marcus Harris, his versatility to be able to move inside and outside. If the guys on the outside are effective and he's getting one-on-one with interior guys in the pass rush game, I think Marcus Harris could have a big, big year.
I definitely think he leads the team in tackles for loss. Yes, that's a good pick there, Jake. He actually just posted the video on Twitter today. I don't know if you saw it of his highlights. It's just him blowing up runs. So big year for Marcus, and we're happy to have his brother Malik Blockton going to come in. The kid's a stud, man. A very good family, very good kids. Jake, 2 teams that have turned it around. Tennessee, and we saw Tennessee was in the death pit for years, right? South Carolina, I'm a big Shane Beamer guy. I think he's got that thing going. FSU, Mike Norvell, which took him a little bit longer. I think it's 3 different teams in South Carolina, kind of not as comparable to Tennessee and Florida State right there. But of those 3 programs that were down and are headed in the right direction, which one of those do you think Auburn compares best to? Do you think it's kind of a 3-year situation like Mike Norvell where we need to tamper our expectations here? Or do you think it's a Tennessee where we can win 7-8 games and then that second year really make some noise? Because that schedule next year looks pretty nice, doesn't it?
I would say Tennessee, and look, Tennessee's got to prove it that they can continue that success. I'm not 100% sold on Joe Milton like apparently everybody in the world is. You know what? Just real quick, you know what blows my mind about Joe Milton, and I hope he goes out and balls. I've got a good Tennessee is good for college football. They are so passionate. I can always respect that. Having coached against them up there, that place is absolutely nuts. But why is everybody all of a sudden surprised like Joe Milton has a strong arm? like we just figured that out. Like it's some like have y'all noticed that? I was like, oh my God, you guys, Joe Milton's gonna ball out because he's got a really strong arm. Well, there must have been some Pokemon style evolution in strength from when he won the job at you go back and won the job at Tennessee. He's got a strong arm. Can he throw the changeup? That's the question. That's what it comes down to. So that's a story for another day. But Tennessee's got to show they can play at that high level for another year because it's not just a one-off. South Carolina, hot at the end of the year, but they're not very good up front. I'm big on Shane Beamer, and he's building it.
Yes, he
right?
is.
I believe in Shane Beamer in the long term. But up front on both sides of the ball, South Carolina's in some trouble. That game against North Carolina may be 60-57. I mean, similar to what we saw in North Carolina App State, believe it or not. But I think Auburn is more toward, if we're talking about getting Auburn to where you're winning 9-10 games, then all of a sudden more than that, consistently, that's going to take some time because you're in the SEC. Florida State's in the ACC, right? It's almost non-comparable. Not that it's easy. Nobody's saying it's easy. But to be able to build the depth up front, to be able to do that, to go through that battle of attrition of an SEC season, to win 9-10 consistently, it's going to take 3 cycles, even with the transfer portal. So that's why I tell Auburn fans, listen, and I'm talking about Florida fans, talking this with Billy Napier. Patients aren't just for doctors and therapists. Fan is short for fanatical. And when you've had success, right, Auburn fans know what it's like. Like you went to 1957 to 2010, they know what it's like to win the national championship. There's generations that didn't know what it's like to win a national championship. We've been fortunate, right? We've seen Auburn win a national championship and play for another one. And so we've seen it. And 2017, play for the SEC championship. Once you sip from that cup, you don't want to go back, right? It's like if you grew up poor and you went over to like some rich kid's house, man, after the weekend, you just want to stay over there, right? You don't want to go back. Like, you go, damn, there's holes in the floor, right? We're eating Swiss cheese sandwiches for dinner. I'm going over here. They got some British dude that answers the door every time I knock on it and dress up in some suit like that. And that takes time, right? It's going to take time. Here's a great example. Look at Dabo Swinney in Clemson, right? Clemson almost fired him. Almost did. But they gave him another year, and look what happened. Now, that's not going to happen every time. But it's to win the way Auburn fans want to win, it's going to take 3 great recruiting cycles of depth, especially up front.
Jake, I saw where you kind of before fall camp, you said that Auburn had a possibility to finish 3rd in the West. And I know you got back to Darryl and you said, hey, look, let's wait till after fall camp and then I'll make my final predictions, man. What would it take for Auburn to get to that point? And what kind of year could you see them having if they do finish 3rd in the West?
Yeah, well, shout out Darryl. And we were talking about, because I let off the show one day, because I do a monologue starting off every show about how Auburn and Alabama having similar records isn't the craziest thing to think of this year when you look at the situation both teams are in. Off the cuff, you think, oh my God, it's like the Joker. It's like he's lost their minds. Like he just like he's going. No, but you really think about it, like it's not that crazy. Like for one to go 9, Bama to possibly go 9-3, Auburn possibly go 8-4, somewhere around there. Look, during the season, a lot of things, right? You look at, you got to catch a lot of breaks, and catching breaks isn't just recovering that fumble that you had that would have been big, that would have turned the game. It's staying healthy, right? It's the schedule. It's when are your bye weeks, things like that. And you look Auburn's non-conference schedule; they shouldn't lose a game on the non-conference schedule. We're not going over to Cal to take compete against them in math or whatever. And that's I'm not trying to knock Cal's a storied program. Great, but this isn't rowing. Like we should go over there and handle business. UMass I mean, any team with the word ass in it, I just don't trust, and they haven't been very good lately. And then, no disrespect to Samford and some of the other teams, but Auburn should sweep the non-conference. All right, you get Bama and Georgia at home. It's going to be very tough for Auburn to beat Georgia. But Auburn and Bama, with the situation going on, it smells funny. Year one, we all know there's a pet cemetery or Indian burial ground under Jordan-Hare somewhere. Crazy things happen. You're able to split one of those. You beat the Mississippi schools and able to win one on the road at Arkansas or A&M. Man, this isn't some crazy formula that's got to happen. And it's year one. Phil Montgomery is the OC. Hugh Freeze coming. You could sneak people a little bit. Nobody's really expecting Auburn to do that much. It's not the typical, hey, it's Auburn. You better get ready, buckle up, strap in, whatever cliche you want to use. So multiple things have to happen, but it's not outside of the possibility by far.
Absolutely. So Jake, let's take your analyst. Let's take your take your analyst hat off for a second. Just Jake Crain, the Auburn fan here. Okay. What do you want as far as the future of the SEC schedule? Because we know what it's going to be in 24, but what we've heard is that was just patchwork, right? And now coming out of media days, it kind of seems like eventually we'll end up at 9 games. Just what do you think just is the best situation for Auburn? What do you want to see for Auburn going forward? Because honestly, I want to keep the Deep South Silver rivalry. Obviously, you keep the Iron Bowl, but I don't give a damn if we drop LSU, dude. I'm not trying to go 20 more years, a drought in Baton Rouge or whatever the hell that was. And if you're playing Georgia and Bama, do you really need LSU on that schedule?
No, we need Vandy. I want to get if I'm the Auburn brass, the people that Bama and Georgia every year. I get it, right? We need to do that. That's one of the best things about Auburn is Auburn isn't afraid of either one of those schools. But on that return, I want Vandy. I want to guarantee Vandy. And I like what Clark Lee's doing up there, right? But it's Vanderbilt. Let's be honest. Okay. Let's all look each other in the eyes and play a game of let's be honest.
Homecoming, okay? Jake. Where are their homecoming?
Yeah, man. I think sometimes it's kind of overblown. Like it's such a high school thing, and I know back in the day, homecoming. I mean, it used to be Georgia Tech, right? Like homecoming used to be like a big game. Like it's gone back and forth. But you got to give us Bama and Georgia. Okay, well, we want Vandy, all right? And we need that. I'm going to need that, right? I'm going to need that.
Jake, wrapping things up, man, and we wanted to go, off of the media side and everything, and we wanted to sit down with you and just ask you, what does Auburn mean to you growing up in that area and everything that your dad did for the program, being the All-American that he was, and what was it like just coming up? And I saw you make a tweet the other day saying that you were out in your yard on Saturday mornings and you could just hear the band playing and everything. And what was that like, man?
Well, first off, obviously when I'm analyzing stuff, I again, when you see how the sausage is made, it kind of changes you. But there's always that little kid in you, right? That fan in you. And that's what makes it great, though. That's what makes it, the emotions that we feel while watching the games. I still get those. Now I'm looking at it different, because I'm sitting here looking at, all right, see what formation they're in. Let's see, I'm going through it, the way the coaching mind works. Now are we in? How do we adjust? They're going trips. Are we cross keying the backside safety? Are we going 2-man on third down? Things like that. But I tell you, man, what Auburn means to me, and my father was Kurt Crane. I was going to be nothing but an Auburn fan. I think what makes Auburn special is that, and you hear the term, Auburn fans love Auburn, not just Auburn football. There's something and it's hard to explain. It's hard to put into words. And when you get paid to put things into words for a living, it's not a cop out. But I remember the first word I ever said was fumble. It's the first word I ever said. I can remember sitting down in front of the TV and watching the Auburn games, with my father, because my father coached until I was, 10 years old, then got out of it for a while and then got back in it. So, my earliest memories are sitting down with him and watching those games and seeing the emotion that he had. Like, it was like he was playing. Like, it was, and I was like, oh, like, And that feeling that you would get when Auburn would come on and then you'd go to the games. I mean, it would, you get emotional, almost bring you to tears.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just, because you're so involved in Auburn, it's that connection. And people make fun of the word family and things like that. But I mean, I had my immediate family, and then I had my father I had my immediate family, and then I had Auburn, right? And it felt, you felt like you're a part of it. Like if Auburn lost back in school, it would ruin my week. Like it would legitimately ruin my week. And you lived or died, and you were happy or sad by how the team did, not just because you won or lost the game, but because you felt like you were judged on how the team that you rooted for you did. And you look at Alabama, and growing up, even in Auburn, a ton of Alabama fans, and they don't think we deserve to walk on the same side of the street as they do. But I like that, though. I like, because when I grew up, it was growing up, we were kicking their ass. Like my dad used to talk about, man, he used to tell me, you never know how good you have it. You never know how good you have it. I used to watch us get killed or whatever, and then when he went and played with Coach Dye and them, they started giving it back to him. And that's what he used to say all the time. They think they're better than we are as people, and that hits you different. I think especially as a male, that like you're always the underdog, but then you embrace that role, and it makes you not afraid of them. And now when I'm looking at analyzing stuff, I'm not watching Alabama like, oh, I'm going to say this about them because I grew up an Auburn fan. No, I'll be the first one to tell you, Nick Saban's a monster, and Alabama's an incredible place. So is Georgia. But the first air I ever breathed, the first breath I ever took was the Auburn Opelika air. That's the first breath I ever took in my life. I remember waking up in the mornings, and we lived in 11 different places in Auburn, from Tampa Farms to on Wire Road to, but we lived kind of in the closer to the stadium. When I was like 13, 14 years old, and and even a little bit younger than that, actually. And I just remember going out Saturday. I'd always wake up early, right? You think, oh, a lot of kids sleep in on Saturday. Not me. I'm waking up early. I got to catch game day, back when ESPN didn't suck. And like I'd go outside and I could hear the band. I could hear them. And it just, you got going, and the whole day you're nervous, right? It's that nervous energy of waiting to see him, waiting to see him, and waiting to see him. And, being associated and having my father that did that was one thing. And that's what connected me with Auburn. But my connection with Auburn was between me and Auburn. It wasn't between just me, my dad, and Auburn. It was between me and Auburn. And I feel like a lot of people probably feel like that. That's what makes college football and football in general the greatest sport that there is. Because every Saturday, it's your way of life versus their way of life. And Auburn, as a fan, is my way of life.
Man, that's great stuff, Jake. Heck.
That's real stuff.
Yeah. that.
But if you're a fan of another school, I mean, I'm going to tell you how it is either way. So, it's like I said, it's not my job to tell you, what's going to make you feel good. I'm going to tell you what I think you need to know. Because, again, if I was a chef for 9 years, I'd probably have a pretty good chef podcast.
Well, Jake, man, let's get you to plug your show, man, and let our listeners know where they can find you before we let you get out of here, man.
Yeah, man. Well, look, if you like sports talk the way it kind of used to be, we cover everything. But look, it's football mainly. We talk a ton of SEC, college football in general. We have guests from all over the country. We got Tom Luganville on tomorrow, Tim Brando on Wednesday. Talk a lot of recruiting as well if you're into that. Have coaches on a bunch. It's called Crain & Company, Crainn Company. Just go to YouTube. It's easy to find. We have a good time too. Started out as the J-Boy show and ended up going with Colin Cowherd in the volume for 6 months and was renegotiating that deal. And then Ben Shapiro reached out to us at the Daily Wire and wanted us to be their sports show. And look, we're not over there talking about immigration or anything. That's really the only political stuff we talk about. It's really not even politicals, men not being in women's sports. Like that's like looking both ways before you cross the road. To me.
Yeah, it's common sense, isn't it, Jake?
Yeah, that's just absolutely common sense. But yeah, we're live each weekday morning, 6:30 to 8 a.m. Central. We do live call-ins. We have a live chat. We do betting as well. So come hang out with us, man. It's a good time. And, I played and coached for a long time. David Cohn, our other co-host, played at Michigan. He's from Georgia. He's from Statesboro. Don't let him fool you. He played at Michigan. My brother played at Western Colorado. So yeah, I mean, we know ball. We love to talk it, and I think you'll enjoy it if you give it a chance.
Love that, Jake. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us. It has been a heck of an episode getting to hear Jake break down the Auburn Tigers. We're so ready for the football season to kick off. Fall camp starting August 2nd. It is here, folks. And
yeah, buddy.
Ready to go. So thank y'all. We will see y'all Friday morning, 10 a.m. on YouTube. Like always, we'll leave you with a War Damn Eagle, and we're out of here.